Before I begin my presentation today, Mr. Speaker, it's important that I recognize some very important constituents of mine who sadly passed away, Mr. Speaker. First of all, Stacey, Ms. Mary Joseph from Duga. She was a light for me, both in terms of inspiration and also in terms of faith. A beautiful woman. I'm so sorry that she's passed. To Helen Toussaint from Deriso. I had an opportunity to go and see some of her family members, and again, she will be sorely missed. And Mr. Titus Francis, who has not lived in our constituency for a while, but his family is a very large family in our constituency, Mr. Speaker. Passed away in Florida. And again, my deepest sympathies to his family on his untimely death. I also think it would be very important for me, Mr. Speaker, to recognize the passing a couple of days ago of Virginia Jean-Baptiste, also known as Anto, Anto Grocery Store, and she's the mother of the Bryce family, that Jean-Baptiste family that owned Bryce and Company. And I think she was an amazing woman, Mr. Speaker. I think that she actually sat on the board of directors. And when you think of where she came from and her political astuteness, I think that she's going to be, then is going to be very much missed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think in today's statements, and particularly that of the Prime Minister, it's not so much what he said, Mr. Speaker, it is more to do with what he didn't say. We're coming across a weekend where we've had 5 murders and 2 persons have remained in critical injury. They are both in the ICU fighting for their lives. And Mr. Speaker, it's not an ordinary weekend.
Member for Chastanet.
Mr. Speaker, you may be in a better position to correct me and to rearrange my ignorance if I'm wrong. But I stand on a point of order, Mr. Speaker, that the member cannot speak on a statement made by a minister of government, but to debate the resolution that is currently on the floor.
He's not debating the statement. He's saying that, bearing in mind there were 5 homicides, you would have thought the Prime Minister would have mentioned that. That's all he's saying. He's not debating the statement.
He referred to the statement.
To say, and he said, what is important to him is not what the Prime Minister said, what the Prime Minister omitted to say.
As you please, as you please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This is not an ordinary weekend. 5 young men gunned down, Mr. Speaker, lost their lives. And here we are, that no one from any of the so-called crime prevention attempts that we have even offered a word, Mr. Speaker. Not a word. Mr. Speaker, we got a situation where people say a member of the police force, Tyson, K9, was murdered. Dog was murdered, Mr. Speaker. Murdered on Wednesday.
Member for Miku South, is that what the statement was? My understanding was that an investigation is being undertaken to determine whether in fact foul play was suspected. I'm not sure a statement of any definitive nature was made to suggest that it was a deliberate killing or otherwise. So you may want to rephrase that last statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. we have a situation where a canine, which is a member of the police force, died under suspicious circumstances. And some people have gone as far, Mr. Speaker, to say the dog was murdered. Now, Mr. Speaker, given what the dog, the canine Tyson, was doing for a living, and given even the suspicious circumstances behind the dog's death, I think that myself, and I'm sure a lot of people in St. Lucia, would have believed by now, Mr. Speaker, that it warranted some kind of commentary. Because in fact, if these suspicious circumstances end up being murder, then there are several implications, or in the favorite word of the Prime Minister he loves to say, speculation as to why Tyson was murdered. And has serious implications, Mr. Speaker, on our belief and our confidence in the state, Mr. Speaker, of law and order, and particularly with the police force, Mr. Speaker. And sadly, not all the policemen, in fact, far be it from the majority of policemen, who I have a tremendous amount of confidence in, but there have been some incidents with police officers in the last couple of weeks, Mr. Speaker, which has really undermined the general public's confidence in what is happening in the police force. And this situation with Tyson also would have warranted some level of comment, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have a situation where reports have come out, Mr. Speaker, that the Europeans, in one of their critical committees, have made a decision to suspend the Schengen visa of St. Lucia and other OECS countries involved in the CIP. And it is expected, Mr. Speaker, please stand on the point of order if you want to.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of order. The honourable member is misleading the House. I would hate to have to do this. I want to hear everything you want to say uninterruptedly, but you are deliberately being deceitful. There's no committee that met within the European Union to take any decision to suspend any Schengen visa arrangement with any country, far less with St. Lucia. That's not true. And I can provide you with printouts to show you exactly what took place in the committees and what the decisions were. And I think you should ask the honourable member to withdraw the statement. And maybe Mr. Speaker should also tell him to stick to the resolution before him. We've given him enough latitude and he's abusing the privileges of this House. It's one thing for him to have some latitude to speak on other tangential issues, but to use it as an opportunity to be so deceitful is unbecoming in this House. And I respectfully ask Mr. Speaker that he withdraw this comment from the records of the House, because it did not happen.
Honourable Member, whilst ordinarily it is the rule that a statement made by an opposition member need not be supported by evidence, because of the far-reaching nature of that statement, I would suggest that unless you can provide some sort of evidence to that effect, you not proceed along those lines.
Mr. Speaker, I'd be very happy to provide the evidence. And again, I've observed over the last couple of years, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, on the point of order, Mr. Speaker, could I respectfully ask that the House be suspended, let the leader of the opposition give the evidence where the sentence had been.
I'm happy to do it.
I can witness it tomorrow.
Honourable Member, the question before me is that you either withdraw the statement or that the House be suspended to allow you time to provide evidence of your statement. which of the two options would you prefer?
I'm happy for the suspension. Be very quick.
Members, he's not going to withdraw, so... And how much time would you need to provide that information?
5 minutes.
5 minutes? Leader of Government Business?
No, Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand suspended for 5 minutes.
No, 10 minutes.
10 minutes. And if the honorable member cannot provide such evidence, he has to step out of the chamber. Because we cannot continue to allow this happen. I know it's a little dramatic to say that, but let me move to suspend the House for 10 minutes.
Honourable members, the question is that this House stands suspended for 10 minutes in order to allow the Leader of the Opposition that time to provide evidence of his statement, and that it is further stated that should he not provide the statement, that the Leader of Government Business intends to move a further motion. I don't think at this point we can ask for the member to leave the chamber. I think, yeah. I now put the question, as many as of their opinion say aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Sitting suspended for 10 minutes.
All right.
It's okay. We need not leave the chamber. That's okay.
Well, yes, so we come to a suspension for 10 minutes in the House of Assembly. What preceded that decision was that the Leader of the Opposition, which is the Member of Parliament for Miku, he was making his contribution, and he started basically on the question of the death of Tyson, the police addition, the K9 police addition, and then he continued making a reference to the CIP. What he said concerning CIP, which brought us to this juncture, is that the European Union, a committee had met within the European Union and were actively considering revoking visa-free status for members of the OECS or sub-regional grouping which had CIP programs. At this point, there were several points of order. His contribution was interrupted, but then it took us to where the minister responsible for CIP, or the tourism minister, Dr. Ernest Hilaire, he challenged the statement by the Leader of the Opposition. He said that there was no such agreement and that it wasn't true. And he further requested that is either, then the Prime Minister stood again on a point of order and said that if the minister should produce the evidence that such a committee had met and was actively considering revoking visa-free statuses of the members of the CIP programs, then he should either produce the evidence or withdraw the statement. And then after, the leader, the minister responsible, Dr. Ernest Hilaire, for the CIP program said, you know what, allow the minister time to get the evidence that such committee had in fact met and that they were actively considering revoking the visa-free status of CIP member countries. So then the decision was taken that the House was adjourned for 10 minutes, and there was even a further addition to the request by members on the government side for some kind of sanction if the minister does not come up with the evidence that such a committee had met on the issue. Michael.
Oui, Virgil, merci pour morceau cela en anglais. Peut-être ça m'a essayer de faire c'est dire exactement ça qui passait en créole. pour ces gens qui écoutent nous, qui comprennent la primaire. Ça nous apprend que c'est nous avons discuté pour les moments exactement c'est nous avons regardé qui côté exactement nous y est c'est à sous motion nous pouvons pas discuter c'est bien c'est motion nous a fait VAT là ok pour c'est différent il était quand constitué pour suspendre pour un petit moment pour aller prendre déjeuner puisque ça a commencé avant déjeuner avec il continue après déjeuner premier monde qui parlait c'était membre parlement pour Babono avec après c'était c'est membre parlement pour Gozile oui après c'était Gozile il parlait à ça il fait contribution avec membre parlement pour Soudmikou qui aussi c'est un chef face à l'opposition debout pour parler avec il était capable de faire contribution avec mais il mettait les affaires CIP en disant avec il dit comme quoi l'année en comité en l'Angleterre et bien en l'Europe qui a décidé pour mettre debout déjà fait visa pour Sainte-Lucie, particulièrement pour ces pays qui ont un programme CIP avec à l'est là, même parlement pour Sud-Castille, debout existe avec pièce. Mais il continue avec même parlement pour continuer à ça c'est Sud-Mikou continuer avec ça mener à l'écart citizen jusqu'à un premier ministre aussi demandé pour bailler preuve qui ça il a dit avec mais il participe il demandé pour prendre parole la vie ça il a pris en withdraw mais il dit pas qu'à withdraw aller ça là qu'il a décidé pour suspendre pour bailler une chance pour garder pour aller prendre joindre évidence à ce ça a été dit puisqu'il comme on dit il décidé il tenait deux choix c'est soit il présenter évidence là et bien il prend parole la vie il décide il pas qu'à point vie alors il baille 10 minutes pour y aller chercher pour preuve évidence avec c'est à tout ça nous y est là à présent côté membre parlement pour Soudmikou ça c'est chef face à l'opposition honorable Alain Chastanet il a cherché pour y aller chercher pour preuve pour présenter by speaker qui consiste avant temps virer comment continuer c'est comme ça hier à présent mais il est important pour nous deux que c'est trois motions seulement pour débutants qui consiste commencer aujourd'hui c'est trois motions seulement elle allait l'année l'autre bill qui pour discuter l'année
before you move on Mike maybe it's a good time where we could talk about the statement of, that the Minister for Tourism and responsible for investment made this morning on the CIP, on the tabling of the CIP annual report.
Oui, ça, Virgile, moi bien content Virgile mentionner ça parce que même quand nous suspend quand constitue pour bail, on va aller chercher des chances pour aller jouer une preuve puisqu'il est capable de sous affaires CIP. Nous avons plus bon matin, le ministère qui est responsable pour les affaires CIP du bout est présenté un rapport à ce programme CIP qui consiste avec il dit il y en a là il dit un rapport Virgile ou Marcel ce qui a changé il dit ça qui a circulé dehors par façade opposition c'est comme que c'est gouvernement gouvernement ça a déjà presque 14 000 passeports mais il dit un rapport qui c'est seulement 1 000 yon mil e-check passport.
Yes, just a little over 1,000.
Plus ki, ite 500 e-check avant, ite yon 1,400, an bagay kon sa. Sel, il répète ça jodi, avec il dit ki Simplici wapwe di one thing to parler ça c'est honorable Dr. Ernest Hille qui est membre parlement pour Sud-Cassu en wapwe il dit comme que Simplici il y en a ses plus meilleurs programmes CIP avec une achat WEG J-Clamérique qui plaît et puis ça yo ka fait en CIP. Alors so achat il intéressé qui ça qui a fait là jodi et puis titan yo point avec là où mettez compte ça docteur Ernest bay rapport ça là il bay et aussi avant entrer il aussi pour mettre qui puisqu'il aussi pour excuse qui il était autant de temps pour ça point bay rapport ça là puisqu'il dit c'est pas très fort mais c'est mon qui a organisé rapport de haut Simplici pour partir présenter à l'air avec et pour mettre que l'autre l'année qui puisqu'il m'a supposé présenter tous les années il pour mettre que l'autre rapport qui est fait bon octobre l'année ça.
Yes, Michael. Yeah, he did give reasons for the delay in tabling the CIP reports, and he said I think one of the main reasons was that there were some changes with the auditors. Some people had to be changed. But some of the things that he noted of interest was he said that St. Lucia was the first in the OECS to begin establishing some rigorous screening of applicants. And he said they were already the first in the OECS to start putting in those measures to ensure proper due diligence of applications. He also spoke about the independent agents who were vetting those applications, and in fact was stating that even some of the measures that St. Lucia first introduced were copied by other members of the OECS. He spoke, of course, of the benefit of CIP to the economy, and that financial reserves had increased by almost 300% to approximately $179.6 million, representing an approximate 300% increase in revenues. Like you said, he debunked the statement that about 14,000 or 40,000 applications were received. He said it was just over 1,000 applications were approved. And he also spoke about his government's CIP program adhering to strict protocols with some of the major international allies like the United States and other bodies.
Oui. L'autre bagage là nous t'ai discuté bon matin, c'est ça fait visite premier président Nigeria Bola, c'est Monsieur Excellence Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Difficulté. OK. Monsieur président Tinubu nous dit qu'il y a Simplici toujours, mais il y a sous vacances avec sinon il peut-être il quitter pays demain si Dieu veut. Mais durant temps était à Simplici tenir un engagement, vous savez, on a ces là tenir en l'occasion joint sitting ça nous a dit des chambres parlementaires chez joindre ensemble en hôtel Sanders, ça c'était mardi, avec aussi la tenir l'autre engagement. Il était aussi mis l'autre engagement, ça c'est avec maman l'école à Saint-Louis Community College. En l'autre bagage, il était intéressant, c'était côté gouvernement, avec le gouverneur général, by l'honneur, ça a créé knighthood en Saint-Louis, un gros l'honneur Saint-Louis, avec il est capable que ça fait un chai parole à ce média social, particulièrement par gens face à l'opposition, qui fait qu'à dire qu'à dit il paraît mérité qualité l'homme ça là avec un pile bagaille avec un pile bagaille avec Jodia premier ministre avec aussi membre parlement pour la Boui qui est aussi qui ministre qui est responsable ministre qui pour les affaires étrangères foreign affairs du pays il baille en à chaque détail un statement détail qu'a dit comme que ça manière il est désappointé et puis situation ça avec il baille un chaque exemple à ce manière c'est un bagage comme ça c'est un bagage diplomatique il explique ça c'est un bagage qui a fait normalement là on a accordé en une qualité respect ça là avec ça qu'a montré on a apprécié mon ça c'est un bagage qui a fait normal en affaires diplomatiques et aussi bail plusieurs exemples côté J.K. John Compton qui recevait l'honneur, plus beau l'honneur par Venezuela. Il va l'année avec il aussi dit comme que ni à présent qu'on nous a parlé, c'est en Trinidad, gouvernement neuf en bas premier ministre Kamala Prasad Bissassa invité premier ministre l'Inde, India pour visiter le pays avec Yoka accordé même bagage ça là avec il aussi parlé à temps ça c'est à temps en bas gouvernement
Chastanet,
ça c'est honorable Alan Chastanet là c'était premier ministre il baille même qualité bagage ça la même honneur ça là pour le président American Airlines qui a voyagé ici qui va jamais faire rien il dit comme qu'il accordé alors il partit il était autant nécessaire pour toutes ces bagages, ça fait toutes ces bagages diplomatiques. Mais en plus, en Virgile, ce qui est intéressant, c'est si long statement qui un ministre Alva Baptiste dit, comme que quantité de bénéfices que le pays a reçu, le pays a avec région OICS la jeune par visite ça là, scholarship avec un chaque bénéfice.
No, absolutely. Yeah. It's a really good summary, Mike. And I mean, the most shocking part of the foreign minister's address was the fact that he said under the Alan Chastanet administration, I think he gave the date was in 2019, that in fact their government, their cabinet had arrived at a conclusion to establish relations with Nigeria. And so basically he was talking about the widespread criticism of Tinubu's visit was in a sense almost hypocritical because they had actually they had actually taken steps to establish those relations with Nigeria. Like, as you said, the minister, Foreign Affairs Minister Alva Baptiste said that the relationship was already bearing fruit. He spoke about collaboration in areas such as education, collaboration in the field of culture. There was an OECS Nigeria joint commission established on education where we would see students from the OECS enter universities in Nigeria. There was he spoke on an engagement between Nigeria's tourism minister and our Minister for Tourism, Dr. Ernest Hilaire, exploring possible areas of cooperation and collaboration in the field of tourism. And he gave the background all in all on why such relations were so important to his government. He said, of course, one of the reasons they established relations with Nigeria was, of course, Nigeria being the giant economy in Africa because of its large population, and he felt that his government could exploit that. He also said that this was a premise of the Labour government from its inception, and he quoted from their foreign affairs policy, in the manifesto, what they intended on doing in terms of establishing South-South collaboration and looking to new relations. And he cited, of course, the relationship with Saudi Arabia, which resulted in, the financing for the St. Jude's Hospital. And he said, that relationship with Nigeria was also in keeping with that same ethos of the Labour Party in terms of spreading their reach and establishing new relationships with new cultures, in the Southern Hemisphere, Mike.
Oui, me content manière oui, particulièrement pour mon comprendre qui ça côté simplicité avec région c'est qu'à joindre assistance, particulièrement après l'économie figue, j'ai descendu avec à chaque côté notre joindre assistance. Pas ni ça encore, c'est l'Europe, j'ai quitté ces pays derrière, l'Amérique, le Canada, c'est place là, ces pays qui étaient bail qualité assistance là. Simplicité avec région, pas qu'à joindre qualité assistance là encore. Avec ce il est nécessaire pour joindre assistance de l'autre côté. Où ça vous comprendre ces raisons qui fait Taïwan et puis c'est l'autre pays comme ça, China, et c'est pas ça qui a assisté. Avec le ministère il est venu nécessaire pour simpliciter adopter comme on dit South-South. Ça veut dire l'autre côté pour joindre assistance. Brésil, Afrique, etc. L'autre côté pays comme ça pour garder qui manière ça développer l'économie avec faire camarade. Nous avons parlé ici mais nous avons qui ça c'est même pas la pour soutenir cours. Si nous avons massacré camarade nous avons montré ça qui a passé pendant ça nous avons parlé c'est honorable Alan Chastanet, chef face à l'opposition qui était allé dehors plus bonheur pour garder pour preuve là il a dévié passable nous aussi madame qui prend des affaires registrées bagaille en constitué il était allé puis c'est lui qui a présenté ces bagages là nous pouvons savoir exactement qui manière nous de bout là mais speaker là avec ma passe nous ils sommes tout à l'heure nous avons en décision par speaker qui est constitué avec et puis honorable Chastanet nous avons commencé tout à l'heure avec nous avons décidé qui ça qui fait.
Yes, we're seeing some back and forth with the leader of the opposition and the Speaker of the House. We just saw the Speaker of the House hand his phone to the member for Castro South. No doubt he was perhaps showing him, I don't know if it is the evidence or what it is. So we're expecting a ruling, we're expecting to hear something. Of course, we think the 10 minutes is up.
Thank you, members. As we speak, that sounds political, doesn't it? As we speak, the member staff is printing the document upon which the leader of the opposition will rely. He does, however, have that document on his phone, and I have read the document on his phone, so I will be in a position to know if he is deviating from what is on his phone. So I'll permit him to read what is on his phone into the record, which will be the same document as the one we'll get shortly.
Go. On a point of order, unless I see the document with my two eyes, anything that the leader of the opposition reads, I want to see.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we shall wait a little longer then.
Okay, well, we had resumed briefly, and the speaker had made an a decision to allow the speaker, the member for Miku, the Honorable Alan Chastanet, leader of the opposition, to read a document off his phone. I suppose a document which would support his claim that yes, there was a committee had met concerning revocation of visas to member states with CIP programs. But the Prime Minister objected, stating that he wished to see the document which with his own eyes. And so the Speaker is saying that the clerk, the staff at Parliament, they are right now printing the document which the leader of the opposition hopes to rely on to prove his case or make his case. Michael?
Ça veut dire, quand Virgil dit, nous avons commencé, nous fini par les batailles, nous dit comme que chef face à l'opposition, on est Alan Chastanet a dévié après 10 minutes là. Mais nous avons parlé et puis le speaker qui a consiste là, quand nous phone avec mais le speaker a viré, il était paré pour virer commencer. Speaker a dit comme que ça c'est preuve là qu'il a espéré. Il était comme quand il printer il a mis sur papier pour présenter sur papier pour tout le monde avec mais pendant temps nous avons espéré ça fait speaker a été permission pour honorable Alan Chastanet lire preuve ça à son phone mais premier ministre et même parlement pour Escassu, ça c'est Escassu, ça c'est honorable Philippe J. Pierre, Doubout dit tout le temps il part, excusez, tout le temps il part, oui, et puis désir, il part qu'à supporter, alors il tenait pour espérer, puisque jusqu'à temps, il mettait à ce papier avec tout le monde en copie pour y saluer, puisqu'il dit il pas ni pièce confiance. Ça, on est Alan Chastanet, Kylie. Ma passage me dit qu'on.
Yes. I mean, it's a summary, you know. But it's very interesting because even right now we're seeing. Can you help me out? We're seeing the Prime Minister, the Attorney General is conferring with, is that the Speaker of the House?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
The Speaker of the House. And we're seeing the Foreign Affairs Minister to the Prime Minister's back debating. But the leader of the opposition, he is in his position, in his seat. And I think he seemed ready to read out the statement. But again, we are awaiting the printout of what the leader of the opposition showed to the Speaker of the House. Again, just to recap what brought us here, the leader of the opposition had stood to make his contribution on one of the motions relating to the zero-rated goods, the removal of VAT on certain construction materials and certain food items. But when he started his contribution, he spoke about problems with the CIP and its the situation with Europe's displeasure, if you will, the European Union's displeasure with our CIP programs. And he said that there was a committee meeting or had met to consider the revocation of our visa-free status. It was that brought us to this point. There were several objections from members on the governing side, the leader of the Prime Minister, the Minister responsible for tourism. They objected and stating this wasn't true. And the House was adjourned initially for 10 minutes where they where they asked to see proof that what the leader of the opposition was in fact saying was actually true. The House was adjourned. The leader went down to have the evidence print out from the Library of Parliament, and as the Speaker of the House just said, after a very brief resumption, that the document is currently being printed, and so we await to see the evidence of what the leader of the opposition said concerning the EU meeting on the visa-free status of member countries to be true or false. And this is where we're at.
Ok, c'est exactement côté nous qu'on nous dit, nous avons espéré. C'est la première fois que nous avons qualité de développement en côté. Il passe, comme on dit, il n'y a pas de confiance en parole, façade gouvernement, pas de presque confiance en parole, façade, ça c'est honorable Alain Chastanet qui a sa façade opposition. Alors, les faits de cette masse-là, ils ont demandé pour preuve, comme on nous dit encore, il y a les points preuve, mais il n'était pas vrai pour lui preuve là à se fournir, mais il a dit non, il n'a pas accepté ça. Il a pas eu une chance. C'est travailleurs qui, en cas de parlement, à présent, qui mettent parole là à ce papier pour tout le monde jouer une copie. Alors, c'est ça, nous, là, qu'à espérer pour le moment. Pour speaker décider qui ça qui a fait. Mais Virgil, pas de temps nous qu'a expliqué. Premier ministre bon matin, il a commencé premier statement, il dit Simplicity c'était même une organisation qui Latin America qui bien il semble une organisation qui Simplicity venu en membre avec c'est un baril qui a payé en chaille valeur avec un chaille pouvoir pour aider l'économie pays, particulièrement comme Premier ministre a dit, c'est en affaires changement climat pour adresser problèmes qui ont pays qui souffert en cas cyclone avec bagage comme
Yes, I think he said the country had become a shareholder in a Latin American bank. He called it CAP, a CAP membership. And he said what that membership does is to give St. Lucia some kind of prominence, some kind of leverage to be able to access a lot of funds, funds perhaps relating to climate change and climate resilience and adaptability. And so he felt it was a good thing for the country. It was raising the country's profile. He cited it yet again as another example of St. Lucia reaching out and trying to lift its profile regionally and internationally, and placing the country, on a better footing economically. And of course, this was the statement by the Prime Minister. But Mike, maybe in context, since it came up a lot, maybe you could speak a lot to the visit of the president of Nigeria, because he's leaving the state tomorrow.
Oui, demain. Oui, d'accord. Oui, Virgil, pendant que nous avons un petit temps, passer pour voyer en station, en studio, nous avons une discussion toujours à ce visite président Tinubu. C'est un peu de monde qui a parlé à ce. Avec c'est ça nous avons dit comme visite président Tinubu, Simplicity manager situation bien. Tout bonnement, avec nous par parole, président Tinubu était bien apprécié visite ça là. Moi aussi, durant nous étions en hôtel là, nous avons une chance pour nous parler, particulièrement, et puis madame là, j'ai oublié non à présent, excusez-moi, c'est responsable pour les affaires touristes, qu'il dit avec les actes, avec bagaille comme ça. il parlait avec tellement confiance, cette manière, il aimait pays Saint-Lucie, il dit qu'il y a un chaque possibilité pour le pays à développer, ces deux pays à pousser, qu'il tire avec, il y a boire ces visites-là en pile.
Yes, it really showcased our island. I was looking at some of the coverage from Nigeria. Yes, and I was listening to some of the commentary, and they were so pleased with the way that the island hosted the president. They were pleased with some of the engagements. They felt that for a little country, you know, St. Lucia had really put up, you know, the best of it, had shown the best of what we were in hosting the president.
Thank you, members, and we are back on the record. So we need to go slightly backwards to where this all began. I shall play the remarks by the member from Mico South, which caused the suspension. So members, listen carefully so that...
We have a situation where reports have come out, Mr. Speaker, that the Europeans, in one of their critical committees, have made a decision to suspend the Schengen visa of St. Lucia and other OECS countries involved in the CIP.
Member from Mico South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As I've indicated, Mr. Speaker, the EU, who have been for a long time on record, Mr. Speaker, of complaining about our CIP program, even while I was Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker. So it's nothing new, the same way we had with regards to the blacklisting of banks, accounts, etc., have expressed their concerns. They recently went
Member, with all due respect,
yes, Mr. Speaker.
The preamble is not really necessary. You can go straight to the point that you have stated that the committee of the EU took a decision to suspend the Schengen visa for St. Lucia and other OECS territories. This is the statement that requires clarification.
Fair enough, Mr. Speaker. I will simply go to the article, Mr. Speaker, that I had made reference to, which is done by IMI.
It's a point of order. Mr. Speaker, I want the honourable member to give me the official document, not press release, the regulation that was approved by the EU. I want an official EU document. I don't want a press release. I do not want any story carried in any newspaper. Go to the official EU document, the regulation as approved, and cite it, the page, because you can read an article that somebody else wrote and it was their interpretation. You know, I want you to use the official EU document and cite that as the authority for what you're saying.
Mr. Speaker, the EU Subcommittee on Justice has approved an act which is in their press statement, Mr. Speaker, which is going to give the EU now the authority to fast track the suspension of the visa regimes.
But that's not what you said.
What did I say, Mr. Speaker?
Let me just...
We have a situation where reports have come out, Mr. Speaker, that the Europeans, in one of their critical committees, have made a decision to suspend the Schengen visa of St. Lucia and other OECS countries.
So what you said was that the committee has taken a decision to suspend the visa of St. Lucia and other OECS territories.
Fair enough, Mr. Speaker. Let me withdraw that statement, then, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, and now let me say this statement the correct way. The committee now has made a decision that will allow it to suspend the visas of the OECS countries. and it is widely reported, Mr. Speaker, that once it passes the broader committee, of which more than likely it will pass, because traditionally once this committee passes it, it will be passed. It will now have.
But remember, it is the decision you're speaking of is based on certain criterion. It is not a decision to just automatically suspend.
Correct.
All it gives them is the authority. So if, for example, there were only 2 manners in which a suspension can take place, they have now possibly expanded that to 4 to say, well, it's now. So, for example, in the United States, one of the decisions taken is that if you don't open up your social media profile, you will not get a visa. That doesn't mean they have just opened it up and say you're not getting visas, period. There's a criteria that any applicant must now open up their social media. So this is fundamentally different to what caused the suspension of the House earlier.
Well, Mr. Speaker, you've also now introduced the fact of the U.S., and what you've just quoted has nothing to do with the proposed ban that we're on. So fact is that there is 12 countries that have been banned to travel to the U.S., and there are 36 other countries that have been put on a list of which they say that they're in negotiations, a fact that was confirmed by the State Department. What we have is a government that is continuously living in denial, Mr. Speaker. The fact is
Remember, I understand what you're saying, but we are dealing, to quote a former member of this House, when I speak with a great degree of specificity. And the specific allegation is that the EU met and have agreed to suspend the visas of St. Lucia. You have now withdrawn that statement and said something else. But that something else is not an end to itself. There is still criteria which they must use to determine whether or not it meets the requirements that they have stated.
Mr. Speaker, I would have hoped that there would have been certain things that would have implied. If in fact a subcommittee of the EU, Mr. Speaker, takes the decision to empower the Parliament and that committee to make the discretionary decisions themselves. So what is it the EU has done, Mr. Speaker? In the past, every single time that any sanctions are to be taken against any other member state that currently has a Schengen visa, Mr. Speaker, there is a long, arduous process that they have to go through. Last year, the Europeans made it very clear that they were going to amend that process and allow the subcommittee to be able to make those decisions on behalf of the Parliament. What I've made reference to, and maybe I said it incorrectly, Mr. Speaker, and for that I apologize. So let me provide clarity. The committee that gives the authority to do that before it goes to the Parliament has passed it and has now said, yes, the subcommittee should be given the authority in order to withdraw the Schengen visas from countries that they believe that they are in breach, of this. The Europeans have made it clear that they have concerns and that they ought to be involved in dialogue. What is concerning to me, Mr. Speaker, is that we have a government that denies that this is even taking place, that there's no threat that they're going to lose their visa regime.
Remember now you are...
In fact, Mr. Speaker...
Member from Microsoft, you're now on a frolic of your own. That is not... Remember, I do not believe the road you're traveling is helpful to your debate on the motion before us. I would suggest you suspend that aspect of your... To quote the member for Lavery, the trajectory that you're now projecting, you should move on to a more specific one and deal with the motion before us. Because the one you are going down there is not helpful to you.
Fair enough, Mr. Speaker. I would certainly just go back to my initial statement and said that I'm disappointed, Mr. Speaker, that the Prime Minister in his statement would not have addressed something as serious as this, and given the clarity that he so choose would have wanted to see. But the fact is, Mr. Speaker, the Europeans are on a track to have that authority. The Americans have already put out a notice that they're concerned about our CIP programs and that they're contemplating a ban. And I was hoping that the Prime Minister would have addressed it. I'm just saying, I think it's a serious enough matter. It requires clarity, and it requires for all of us in St. Lucia, including the opposition, to believe that the government has a handle on the situation. What I've heard is denials, but I will take your recommendation, Mr. Speaker, and I will proceed. Mr. Speaker, I would certainly like the Prime Minister to provide clarity on the member of Soufrière's statement. I was a bit taken back initially when she said it, that the sum total of the savings of what these reductions are going to be was $5 million. I would love any clarity. I mean, any clarity.
The cost to the government.
The savings to the government was $5 million. If I'm saying anything wrong, I'd be happy to sit down and allow for clarity.
Cost to the government.
That the cost to the government was going to forego $5 million in revenue. The government is going to forego. The government is going to forego, but the government will be saving. The people will be saving $5 million. The government will be foregoing $5 million. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Correct.
Okay? That the savings that you're passing on to the people of St. Lucia is $5 million. Okay? Right? $5 million, Mr. Speaker. $5.4 million. I stand corrected. $5.4 million, Mr. Speaker. $5.4 million. I just want to put that in perspective. Mr. Speaker, the other issue is, and it's the Prime Minister, and also, in all fairness to him, and certainly the member from Soufrière, spoke about this, but I'm not 100% sure they really were able to give it a sufficient discovery. And that is the difference between zero-rated and exempt. I said that. I said, but I gave you credit for that. And I said, but there's still clarity that's required, because the difference is that when it's zero-rated, Mr. Speaker, there's no VAT at the point of entry, and no VAT is added at the point of sale. But it is part of the VAT list. And one of the vexing issues has been that it actually has cost businesses more money, because the amount of revenue that's being attributed to it and the VATable amount creates a deficiency and means a deficit to the government, to the business. And the question is whether those businesses are going to pass on that extra cost to the consumer, or whether they're going to absorb it. And I heard the member say she's hoping that the businesses will absorb it, but there's no guarantee that the businesses will. So the statement that you're going to reduce the cost, the VAT, by 12.5%, and therefore there's going to be a 12.5% reduction in the price, is not an accurate statement, Mr. Speaker. I can understand if we say that we hope that it will be, but there is no legislation that would require it to be. And depending on the mixture of goods that businesses have, that cost difference can be quite sufficient. It can be quite large. So, Mr. Speaker, I applaud the government. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Like my colleague from Choiseul, I have only hoped that this would have been done much earlier. And simply saying, oh, that the opposition is going to say that, is not an excuse. The fact is that when we were facing the highest levels of inflation, and that they were the highest levels of, Mr. Speaker, 3 years ago we had inflation. Everybody was talking about the reason why the cost of living was going up was because of inflation and because of supply chain issues. So all I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, when that happened, this is the time when you needed to introduce this. This is when it would have mattered the most. And we also said, Mr. Speaker, that the government, in addition to reducing or eliminating the VAT, ought to have reduced some of the duties. I heard that the member from Labrie was going to talk about it. He didn't. But, Mr. Speaker, that's the obvious thing to do. Of course the Prime Minister is correct. Yes, and we admitted that. There's nothing that St. Lucia can do if the cost of a good coming into St. Lucia is higher. We import it. The question is, how are you going to treat it? And we've seen over the last 3 years, Mr. Speaker, that we have a government that has been callous, has been irresponsible, has been unconscionable on the taxes. In fact, so much so, Mr. Speaker, that they took advantage of the people in St. Lucia when it came to the excise tax on gasoline. And we've said the same thing. Everybody, everyone, every government has subsidized cooking gas and kerosene. We all do. Different levels. Correct. And when the gas prices come down and you don't change the price at the pump, it means that the government is collecting more money, which means it would have given it a greater opportunity to have reduced or increased those subsidies. In fact, what the government did, Mr. Speaker, when the prices came down on LNG, LPG. Sorry? LPG, my apologies. Right? They didn't reduce they didn't increase the subsidy. They reduced the subsidy. The Social and Economic Review shows excise tax, VAT on local goods has gone up. It showed that the duties, the excise tax on imported goods, the revenue went up. Of course it's going to go up. Mr. Speaker, if you have an item for simple calculation that today has a value of $1, and to keep it simple that our tax is 10%, government's going to collect 10 cents. If that same product now, because of inflation, is coming in at $1.50, and you're charging 10 cents, you're now going to collect 15 cents. 5 cents more. Correct. And that is what happened in St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker. So instead of reducing the 10% to a lower rate, so that government would have actually only collected the 10 cents as they were before, government chose to take the windfall. Government chose to take the extra money. Government did not pass on those savings to the people of this country. And yet, they want to come to this house and act as if there's some kind of Robin Hood, that everybody is supposed to celebrate them, Mr. Speaker. But the fact is, and all the numbers are there, we collected over $300 million more in taxes. And yet the volume of business did not change. The volume of business did not change, Mr. Speaker.
How the GDP rules?
Oh, Mr. Speaker, my member and my good colleague friend from Castries Central again. Yes, you are.
I'm not your friend.
We're in the house together. We made different opinions.
Member for Castries Central, we have clarified that already.
Yes.
He is not your friend, but you are his.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to set the record very, very straight on that. That whether he believes I am his friend or not, I am not his friend. And that's a point of elucidation.
But he accepts that.
He accepts that?
He says he's your friend.
You believe the organ within his mental chamber is good enough for that analysis to pervade?
What I believe is irrelevant. I can only go on what he said. He is your friend.
I want him to know categorically that this human being will never be his friend.
But he accepts that.
Okay.
And I'm relieved. Mr. Speaker, the government had an opportunity to have done this exact exercise and more earlier, when it mattered, when it made the biggest difference in people's lives. People were recovering from COVID. For a long time, people had not made money, Mr. Speaker. People were spending money. And then came supply chain issues, and then came inflation. A government with a heart, a government with a conscience would have recognized that and had done this earlier and more, because $5 million, Mr. Speaker, is not sufficient. It's a beginning, but it's not sufficient. Mr. Speaker, the government could have done much more and should have done much more 3 years earlier. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said, tell him what the government has done worse than us. That was an interesting question, Mr. Speaker. And let me attempt to answer it a little bit. The first thing that the government has done worse is their management of crime, measured by the crime rate, homicide rate. We've had 3 years, Mr. Speaker, of over 75 murders. To date, we're almost 32, 33. I'm not so sure how much the minister from crime prevention is going to say. But for sure, crime is substantially worse in this country. And even if you just take it from the killing of the dog, right? We left the government with 3 canines.
Member for Miku South, you may want to differentiate crime overall and homicides, because there are statements made as recently as last week where the people responsible for crime have indicated a 32% decrease. So I'm just trying to guide you along. I think the trajectory you're going along is homicides as opposed to crime overall.
Mr. Speaker, when we do get back into government, I definitely have to find ourselves a Speaker of the House like you. Because, anyway, I will resist. I'm going to say, Mr. Speaker, that for sure the management of crime, and in particular homicides, okay, that the government has done a much worse job than what we did. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the management of CIP and the reputation of CIP, for sure, Mr. Speaker, St. Lucia's CIP program was standing up ahead above everyone. It was being embraced by our international partners as being an example out there. And we were doing a lot of things that I was very proud of, Mr. Speaker. The fact is, today, our CIP program is marred. Our reputational damage that's done to the program and to St. Lucia, and the mismanagement of the CIP is an embarrassment to all of us, Mr. Speaker. The state of our roads, Mr. Speaker. And then remember, Mr. Speaker, that's coming from a government that when they were in opposition said, you can't eat roads. That's what they said. You can't eat roads. You're fixing up roads during COVID, correct. Creating jobs for people, improving the product, so that when we came out of COVID, that the country could have now stormed ahead. The same government that said that we're the only ones who believed that tourism was going to come back. It was United Workers' Party that during COVID quickly turned around, Mr. Speaker, and put a plan together to pull this country up. But look at the state of the roads that we have, Mr. Speaker. I mean, Mr. Speaker, and it is the continuous allegations by this government, particularly when you talk about the Rodney Bay Road. They said in opposition that there was corruption. And I remember $15 million to do 2 roundabouts, a pedestrian walkway, and 4 lanes. Yet $12 million to do the Bois Bridge. And yet in the $15 million, they claimed that there was corruption. They came in, they suspended the contract, Mr. Speaker.
I was in Labrie yesterday.
And after 90 days, the contractor withdrew. Okay. After assessing the work that he had done already, they paid him $22 million. And meanwhile, the road has stayed there. We are worse off now than we were before, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to roads. The supply of water. I listened to this nonsense going on by certain members from this house. I can't believe it. To suggest that there was corruption in the desilting of the dam. The desilting of the dam started under the former government, which is fine. Under the Labour Party, when we came into government in 2016, the loan had already been negotiated and what we were going to do with the CDB. That was done. And Mr. Speaker, you know that when you get a final closing report from CDB to say everything is good. Correct. And they want to now talk about semantics, want to talk about desilting, as if the desilting was supposed to take place in 1 year, Mr. Speaker. How is that possible? The desilting is supposed to take place every day, every year, during the dry season. That's the only time you can do it. But the first set of desilting that was done, Mr. Speaker, because there are 3 valves on the wall, the bottom valve was blocked off. So it means if the water level dropped to the middle part, below the middle part, you had no more water because you had no way of extracting it. So the first area to desilt was the lower valve. But that entire program of the desilting was designed by a tender overseen by CDB. You want to come and make suggestions that there was involvement? Really? We don't know how CDB works? Where's the opportunity to go and take any money from CDB, Mr. Speaker? So again, Mr. Speaker, CDB is the one who did the loan? Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, sometimes, Mr. Speaker, I'm wondering how the Prime Minister makes this really. The same levy that was put on, and remember the controversy behind the levy because there was a comparison between the airport tax levy and the levy for the dam. And members on the opposite side to me, Mr. Speaker, had said that we should not have put the airport tax levy because the work had not begun. And comparisons were made to the dam because the same thing was done. So the fact is that the levy is not what created the loan. The levy is what was used as leverage in order for CDB to give the loan.
No, that's where you got the money from. You use all the money.
No, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, you did.
Mr. Speaker, the money came from CDB, Mr. Speaker, and to pay back the CDB loan, it comes from the levy tax. But Mr. Speaker, fair enough, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to water, we have never seen the kind of situation that we've seen here today, Mr. Speaker, in this country, with the supply of water. Every day is another cry of shortage. So I would say to you, Mr. Speaker, 100% sure that we are worse off today when it comes to water than we were before, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when we talk about sports and Lockerbie, $33 million, and the members on the opposite side continue to perpetuate the lie, Mr. Speaker, that Lockerbie was the one who was paid the $33 million. Lockerbie was paid a consultancy fee of $1.5 million. The rest of the money, Mr. Speaker, went into building the Soufriere facility, the football field, the track, and the lights. Mr. Speaker, the $32 million was used for Derasso, the playing field and the lights. It was used for the Mico field. It was used for Denry, the playing fields and the lights. And it was used for the Groselay Sports Academy. That's what the money was used for. Now let's look at that. That's money that came from the Taiwanese grant money. We never touched the money that was going into the NLA. The NLA money was to be used to be able to sponsor sporting activities to be able to play on the field. A fundamental difference. This government comes in, they're genius, and do what, Mr. Speaker? Give a guarantee to the NLA for the NLA to borrow the money, $80 million. NLA has no procurement guidelines. Nothing was put out to tender, Mr. Speaker. Nothing. And up to today, we cannot get a report from the Minister of Finance or from the Minister of Sports as to how the money was spent. We only hear that $40 million was spent on Darren Stanley Stadium. And remember, a stadium that costs what, $32 million to build? You spent $40 million? $40 million? Where is it? Where's the rest of the money? And more shamefully than that, Mr. Speaker, they borrowed the money. That means that NLA now is responsible for paying back the loan $800,000 a month. $800,000 that should be going in to support sporting programs, scholarships, and doing the things that that money was designed to be done with. But no, now the government has robbed the young people of their future, Mr. Speaker, has depleted the NLA of resources, and for the last 2 years has put in a subvention of $1.7 million from the government, transferring it to NLA. That's a revenue generating entity. How is that, Mr. Speaker? How is that? So I would say to you, based on that information, Mr. Speaker, the young people of this country are for sure were better off before than they are today. Our sporting facilities were better off in where we were going then than they are now, Mr. Speaker. And that is a fact. Mr. Speaker, under United Workers' Party when we came in, we are the ones who reduced VAT. We're the ones who eliminated property tax, Mr. Speaker. We're the ones who took away the license fees, reduced the license fee for vehicles by half. I heard the members wanting to say, oh, people didn't benefit from the VAT. Oh, Mr. Speaker, the evidence is contrary. Because there was an allegation, particularly from my good friend, the member from Castries Central, that we were giving away $52 million, Mr. Speaker. The first year, there was a shortfall of revenue of $15 million. And within 18 months, the government was collecting just as much money from VAT at 15% as it was at 12.5%. So how is that mathematically possible, Mr. Speaker? It's in your books, Mr. Speaker. I'd be happy to, Mr. Speaker. I've said it before. It's not the first time I've said this, Mr. Speaker. So the fact is that how is that possible? It is because the money was circulating. More people were buying more products. The more products they were buying, the more VAT we were being able to collect. The economy was stagnant when we came in. Nothing was moving. In fact, members on the opposite side said something went wrong. We couldn't even borrow money. We were down to just borrowing treasury bills, Mr. Speaker. You want to talk about economy that you inherited? There was no disaster before 2016 that would have warranted that the economy would have been in the condition, the coma that it was in. Mr. Speaker, I don't have to use my words, Mr. Speaker. We have the words of the Medical and Dental Association. What did they say? They said that the health care has never been worse in our country. And in fact, they threatened the ministry that if they could not fix the things, that they would fix the OKEU and the healthcare centers, that they would resign. And they did. They've resigned. Mr. Speaker, it's in the letter. Let me go get the letter so I can read it. Maybe
Mr. Speaker,
want to go through
on a point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Miku North, sir, Viewfort North, sorry.
On a point of order, the member is misleading the House. The member has said that the medical and dental, the SLMDA, threatened the Ministry of Health. I want him to produce a letter which shows that the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association threatened the Ministry of Health. That's a serious indictment on the SLMDA. I want him to produce the letter which specifically states or shows
Mr. Speaker, let me
that the SLMDA threatened the Ministry of Health.
If I may, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the member wants to speak in semantics. The letter was written to the OKEU board, the Millennium Heights board. I would have to assume, Mr. Speaker, that the government oversees the Millennium Heights board.
Speaker,
and that
Mr. Speaker,
and that the minister would have taken
on a point of order.
Member for Viewfort North.
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order. The member for Miku South stated that the SLMDA threatened the Ministry of Health. I want him to show where the SLMDA threatened the Ministry of Health. That is the thing. If he cannot show that, he should withdraw the statement, because it's an indictment. If what he's saying is true, then he's saying that the SLMDA is threatening the ministry. I have never received a threatening letter from the SLMDA. I've never received a letter where the SLMDA threatened the Ministry of Health in St. Lucia. I've never seen a letter like that. So if he cannot prove that the SLMDA sent a letter to threaten the Ministry of Health, he should withdraw.
Member for Microsoft, would you care to rephrase?
I will rephrase the statement, Mr. Speaker. The Medical and Dental Association wrote to the Medical and Dental Association, to the Millennium Heights Board that's appointed by the minister. That's who appoints the board, the minister. And if the minister wants to hide behind semantics, that's fine. I will give him his day. The letter was written to the Medical and Dental Association. Letter was written to the Millennium Heights Board, of which he appointed the board.
Yes, member for Vieux-Fort North.
Mr. Speaker, again, I stand on a point of order. The member for Mico South said that the SLMDA wrote a letter and threatened the Ministry of Health. I'm the Minister for Health. I have never received a letter from the SLMDA which threatened the Ministry of Health. The member for Mico South must withdraw that statement. He now says he's saying something about, no, you did not withdraw. You must withdraw that.
I did.
The SLMDA, Mr. Speaker, the SLMDA has never written a letter to the Ministry of Health threatening the Ministry of Health. And I want the member for Mico South to withdraw that statement.
Member, you did not withdraw. You attempted to clarify what you said. Are you withdrawing the part related to the part that the SLMDA wrote to the Ministry of Health threatening them?
I thought when you said to me, Mr. Speaker, and you were subject to change your mind, and I've made...
No, I'm not changing my mind. He has now asked specifically...
You asked whether, in fact, I was prepared to amend.
But that does not...
Yes, I'm prepared to amend.
That does not satisfy the member for Vieux-Fort North who wants you to withdraw the statement.
I will withdraw the statement, and I will now say it in a different way. That the Medical and Dental Association wrote a letter to the Millennium Heights Board. The same Millennium Heights Board that was appointed by the minister and sanctioned by cabinet, and told them that things were so bad, and if they did not improve, that members, doctors, and nurses would be resigning, which they did. If the Minister of Health chooses to say that he didn't know, I'm shocked that something as serious as that was widely circulated in the public, that he would not have seen it.
Again,
Mr. Speaker,
he didn't say
I will not allow him to continue. Mr. Speaker, the member from Mico South says that I said I didn't know.
I concur. You never said that. So
exactly.
You have to withdraw that statement. He said specifically that he's Minister for Health and no such letter was written to him. That's what he never denied being aware of the contents of a letter written to the Millennium Board. He was very specific in his rebuttal that the Ministry for Health never received that. So I would ask you to withdraw that last statement.
Mr. Speaker, we're dealing with semantics.
Semantics or not, are you going to withdraw the statement saying that he said he did not know?
I'm happy to withdraw that statement, Mr. Speaker. But I will say, Mr. Speaker, okay, that the member, in suggesting that the letter was not written to him, and to accept the fact, I'm asking him, is he prepared to accept the fact that he knew about the letter? And is he prepared to accept the truth that doctors and nurses did resign? And I would be shocked, Mr. Speaker, if the member told me he didn't know. He had to know. So whether the letter was written directly to him, it was written to an organization that falls under his purview. So if you want the semantics that I said that the letter was written to the ministry, I withdraw it. But I say and I clarify, the letter was written to the Millennium Heights, the board of which the minister appointed the persons, sanctioned by cabinet. And I would have to believe that you all knew what was going on. And the point of making all of that, it was the Medical and Dental Association, Mr. Speaker, that said that things have never been worse. And it would have seemed that the threats that were made to the Millennium Heights board were not taken seriously, Mr. Speaker. So much so, I believe that the board was eventually replaced, thankfully. But it was too late, and a lot of damage has been done. So the fact is, when the Prime Minister asked, are things worse than under the previous government? For sure, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to health in this country, things are worse today than they were previously, Mr. Speaker. Not my words. Not my words. Mr. Speaker, there's a recurring theme by members. I heard the member of Labour perpetuating this nonsense. And so I want to correct her. I want to correct the Prime Minister as well. The Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister. The Minister of Labour stated.
No, saying that the Minister for Labour, not the member for Labour.
My apologies. The Minister of Labour, Mr. Speaker. The member from Babylon. That when they came in, they had to pay the back pay. That's true. But the fact is that my administration was the first one to ever agree on terms in advance, which we did. And what's the advantage of that? When now civil servants were able to obtain for the first time, instead of retroactively, to get a contract that was signed in advance, Mr. Speaker, it means they can go to the bank, and the bank would recognize that increase going down the road. But when we came in, Mr. Speaker, we had to pay the retroactive, like many other governments that have come into office. So let us understand the two tiers of retroactive pay that this government had to pay. The first one was a 1% increase that was due in 2020. And we had a little event, Mr. Speaker, called COVID, where, if you remember, the then Minister of Labour attempted to negotiate with the unions in order to get the unions to agree to allow us to pay them part of their salary down the road. And we were not successful. We didn't force it upon anybody. But during that negotiations, the unions offered that what they would do is postpone the implementation of the agreed 1% because of what was going on for COVID, Mr. Speaker. So when the government came in and revenues in government had improved, they had to pay it. But they didn't pay it right away, Mr. Speaker. In fact, they didn't even turn around to negotiate with the unions at that point in order to negotiate the agreements in advance for the two trienniums. They waited until almost the end of the first triennium. So the second tranche of back payments that they had to pay, Mr. Speaker, were their own, not ours. That happened in their time. They're the ones who had to pay it, Mr. Speaker. And they didn't. I didn't pay it. So now you want to come and pat yourself on the shoulder that you made the payments in retroactively? How many governments have done that, Mr. Speaker? Repeatedly, we've done it, Mr. Speaker. Repeatedly, Mr. Speaker, we've done that. Mr. Speaker, again, the member from Castries East is saying he paid what we didn't pay. I've explained the conditions. You had COVID? No problem. No problem. We did not pay it. We did not pay it. We did not pay it because we had COVID, and it was part of the agreement that the workers agreed to postpone the payment of the 1%. So by contract. So, and again, Mr. Speaker, semantics. It was not that we didn't pay it, Mr. Speaker. We negotiated with the unions, and the unions agreed to postpone the payment because of COVID. And they understood what was happening with COVID. And they agreed. So it wasn't to say that we didn't pay. It was postponed, and it was sent down the road. So when the government came in, Mr. Speaker, the expectation was for them to pay it because contractually they had to pay it. But what they want to do, Mr. Speaker, is also to confuse that with the fact that a triennium started under their term and they did not agree And so it was not until they had the agreement on one advanced triennium, which I congratulate the government on, fantastic, I'm happy for the workers, but you had to go and pay your own back pay, Mr. Speaker. That's what you all paid. You all paid the back pay of the first triennium that you were supposed to have negotiated, and you didn't negotiate, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, you didn't pay either. No, you didn't pay. You paid it afterwards. And there was no payment to be made because contractually the unions agreed to postpone. There was nothing for you to pay because the unions had contractually agreed to postpone, and the payment came due when you were in government. End of story. Mr. Speaker, I move on, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, St. Jude's. Are we better off today than we were before? You know, Mr. Speaker, there's a video that was done. I heard it was paid for by Mr. Gajada. And in that video, which was done by him, in which he said, Mr. Speaker, he said that he and his team made the decision that cost doesn't matter. And that the most important thing was to finish the hospital. So much so, in order to expedite the project, Mr. Speaker, he decided, he and his team, that they were going to fly equipment in. He went through the explanation to say they flew equipment in from London. They flew equipment in from India. He said he went as far as to flying equipment in from China. He said they flew from China to London and from London to St. Lucia. And you know what he said, Mr. Speaker? He said that he had spent so much money on shipping things in that he could buy British Airways. Not a plane, you know, Mr. Speaker. Not a plane. But he said he could buy British Airways. Mr. Speaker, this is a serious, serious indictment, and this is a serious problem. Already, Mr. Speaker, the decision to go back into the old hospital on the basis that the hospital would have been completed earlier and cheaper. And here we are, 4 years later, Mr. Speaker. All we have is a report in the estimates, a budget item line that says $265 million. And we don't know. I said to you, if any other country, Mr. Speaker, the contractor who was selected seems to be reporting to whom, I don't know, maybe it's to him himself and his committee, made that public statement, Mr. Speaker, and said that on a matter like this, that cost doesn't matter, as if it was his money. Did he consult the government, Mr. Speaker, when he says he and his team? When he would tell us, Mr. Speaker, that he spent enough money on flying equipment in that he could have bought British Airways. British Airways has a value of almost $5 billion US. Really? And yet, after making the decision to fly all this equipment in order to be able to expedite the process, Mr. Speaker, all we keep getting are promises and promises and promises as to when St. Jude is going to open. And Mr. Speaker, it is very clear.
Member, you have 15 minutes left, and you have been given a tremendous amount of latitude.
Like everybody.
But I imagine at some point in time, your contribution is going to collide with the resolution.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I certainly had dealt with the matter, and I was simply taking the opportunity to respond to what the Prime Minister said. I think that I would give that latitude to do so. So the fact is, the Prime Minister said Can we give examples? Can we give examples? Can we give examples? I have no reason to go anywhere, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister, the member from Castries East asked whether in fact we can give examples of whether we are better off, that we're worse off today. And I'm listing all the examples. St. Jude's is a disaster, Mr. Speaker. An absolute disaster. You're going from a building, I think it was the member from Labrie, the Republic of Labrie, Mr. Speaker, who told us that what we needed was some chemical and some paint, right? And it would take 6 months, right? That's what he said to us, Mr. Speaker. That's what he said. Where's the chemical and where's the paint? $265 million, we believe that's been spent. We have a contractor that not only doesn't seem to be accountable to the taxpayers of this country, but is using foreign labor. That's the question. Do they have work permits, Mr. Speaker? Do they have work permits? Is somebody determining the conditions they're living in? Are they working under the same conditions as St. Lucians? Or are we now undermining the workforce of St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker? I don't know. We keep asking the question. We see that we have over 80 or 90 Chinese working at canals, no St. Lucians. We all saw that they were using an open pit as a latrine, Mr. Speaker. Where's the supervision? Are they work permits? What conditions are they working under? Are these people being brought in to replace St. Lucian workers?
Remember, you're now abusing your attitude. So perhaps you can get back to the resolution, because it's what you have, where you're going there, with canals and Chinese. It's an abuse of your privilege. So perhaps you want to go back to the resolution.
Mr. Speaker, I'm simply just talking about the management of the sites. And I'm just asking the question because the Prime Minister asked the question, are we better off? I believe that...
But to quote one of your own attorneys, you are using an obiter comment to make the substance of your response and not dealing with the ratio decidendi of the Prime Minister's statement. So perhaps the core of the Prime Minister's statement, you have not dealt with it at all. You're using a by-the-way comment to make it the thrust of your presentation. But what is before you is a resolution on the zero-rated VAT.
So, Mr. Speaker, I will end by saying that the workers of this country are better off today, are better off, yes, before than they are today. They're better off. Because repeatedly we're seeing them complaining about whether the government is protecting them or not. We see that repeatedly, Mr. Speaker. Repeatedly. How many times the workforce has complained about how they're being treated and the lack of respect and protection they're being given by this government. Mr. Speaker, I don't know if I'm free to comment at this point, Mr. Speaker. I saw that we laid before the House the CIP audit paper. I'm not so sure I'm allowed to pass any comments on that, Mr. Speaker?
You can't debate it.
No? Okay. So, Mr. Speaker, it was interesting to note that finally, almost 6 months late, that the audit, the statement, the report, the annual report, and the financial statement of the CIP was laid before the House today. And I heard the members say that they're making every attempt to get it in before October. Remember, October is the last date you can bring it in. There's nothing that's preventing you from bringing it earlier. And I would say to you, given what's going on in CIP, the more information that could be provided, the greater transparency there is and the less chance there is speculation. But what I noted in the report, Mr. Speaker, that was very interesting is that the donation program, which is the $100,000 that goes into the account and goes into the economic fund, has been all but decimated and has been replaced by administrative fees from the real estate program of $88 million. But shockingly, Mr. Speaker, the highest earning item in the report was the due diligence. Due diligence fees were $133 million. And why do I say that? Because the due diligence fees come in and they go out just as fast. Because we have to pay companies who are doing the due diligence. There's very little markup that the government is going to get on that. And Mr. Speaker, there are several notes within the CIP report that I will take up at a different time that are concerning from what I saw in the report. I also want to say, Mr. Speaker, the details of the infrastructure program as well as the escrow account, again, are not being mentioned in the report. So this report, I want to make it very clear, Mr. Speaker, continues to keep itself simply defined on the operations of the CIP unit itself and provides no details of what's taking place in the escrow account. And certainly the infrastructure contract that was written that allowed Galaxy to get 6,000 files and collect the money themselves, there's nothing in here in that report. This simply is how much money their CIP unit received, primarily on due diligence fees, some administrative fees, and marketing and promotion fees. And I'm very, very concerned by what I read in the report, and I was hoping that the member, when he made his statement, Mr. Speaker, would have provided greater clarity rather than continue to try to lay blame on what has happened in the past, and to remind him that he is the one who amended the real estate program to go from 1,000 files to 6,000. His government is the one that created the infrastructure program for 6,000 files. Those are all his babies. And those are the ones that are causing us the greatest amount of grief, including BMAX. So on that point, Mr. Speaker, I want to end by saying I do support what the government has done as it pertains to reducing the VAT on these items. I still don't think it's enough. I don't think that $5 million is sufficient. I think the government should seriously have looked at the duties on a lot of these items, Mr. Speaker. I think that people should be cognizant of the fact that they're not going to see a 12.5% saving on a lot of their products, because there is an additional burden or cost to the businesses that the businesses are going to use their discretion. Hopefully they use their discretion in the right way and pass it all on to the people, but there is no obligation for them to do that. And again, I want to say that we had made this recommendation over 3 years ago. I'm disappointed the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance did not take advantage of it then, but it's never too late. And he can maybe go to the same garbage that he threw our recommendations in, Mr. Speaker. Maybe he can uncrumple them and he can go and read them. But if he wants to, I'm happy to send him another copy of the report. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.